Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a massive historical detective story, the evolution of state and society up to 1000 CE. We're going to uncover exactly how early humanity in the Indian subcontinent shifted from living in these tight-knit, small family tribes to building incredibly complex, massive territorial states. Picture this. You're living in a sprawling group of people, thousands of years ago. There are no written constitutions, there are no police forces, no modern courts. So how do you maintain order? How do you actually organize? This right here is the foundational mystery of human civilization. Whenever large groups of people live together, rules and shared norms just have to evolve to maintain harmony. But how exactly did we get from simply sharing customs to forming actual functioning governments? Well, it helps to look at the huge difference between a society and a state. Think of a society as being entirely organic. It's basically a system of social relationships bound by a shared culture, customs, and a general sense of belonging. But a state? That is a whole different ballgame. A state is a highly organized political system built on formal rules, strict laws, and governance mechanisms. It spells out distinct rights and duties for both the rulers and the people. So making the jump from just hanging out as a society to structuring a state is a monumental, absolute game-changer in human history. To really wrap our heads around this leap, we need to map it out. We are looking at a massive historical window here. We start with the Vedic period, kicking off around 2000 BCE, moving through the composition of the Upanishads. Then, right around 1000 BCE, we hit this crucial transition into territorial states known as Janapadas. From there, we see the rise of the even larger Mahajanapadas around 600 BCE, all the way down to the early kingdoms established in the south by 300 CE. Tracking this timeline ensures we don't get lost, as we watch these early systems rise and evolve. So where did this whole shebang actually start? Well, with family. Early human connections were built almost entirely on kinship. Back in the early Vedic period, society was organized into these clans called janas. If you were part of a jana, your entire identity was deeply bound by who you were related to, rather than some invisible border on a map. You belonged to your people, not to a specific plot of dirt. To figure out how these kin-based societies actually worked, historians use 4 ancient survival guides, the Vedas. First up is the Rig Veda, which packs in 1,028 hymns reflecting on big universal thoughts like creation and deities. Then there's the Sama Veda, which is arranged for musical recitation and literally laid the foundation for the 7 swaras of Indian music. The Yajur Veda breaks down the performative, practical aspects of rituals in prose. And finally, the Atharva Veda offers a fascinating look at everyday survival, featuring hymns to ward off evil and treat ailments. Together, they give us incredible clues into what our ancestors were thinking. And just look at this incredible physical artifact. This is a Rig Veda manuscript. Now, while this specific written script came much later, you have to remember that these texts existed purely in oral form for centuries. The earliest sections of the Rig Veda were composed over in the Sapta Sindhu region. That's the Indus River and its tributaries. This text is, quite literally, the foundational voice of early Indian traditions. By reading these texts, we know for a fact that early governance was a family affair. The Rig Veda alone lists about 30 distinct clans, or janas. There were even 5 specific clans that teamed up to form a famous collective called the Panchajana, or the 5 Peoples. And their leader, they called him the Raja. But scratch the image of a guy sitting on a golden throne with a crown. At this stage, the Raja was really just a clan chief. His #1 job was to protect his people and lead them into battle.
All right, moving on to our next section, the first politicians, early Vedic assemblies.
Because, a clan chief couldn't just run around doing whatever he wanted. These clans actually formed early institutions that functioned kind of like our modern parliaments to keep power in check. There were 3 main ones. First, we have the Sabha. The Sabha was this smaller, super exclusive body made up of the polity's elites. Think of it like a highly specialized committee that handled judicial matters and resolved disputes within the clan.
Then, contrast that elite group with the Samiti. The Samiti was a much larger assembly, and its whole purpose was to represent the broader population. This wasn't just for the VIPs. This was the place where they hashed out vital policy decisions and significant political affairs. It was a way for the everyday people to have a voice in where their community was heading.
And finally, there was the Vedanta. This was the ultimate public forum. It was a popular gathering attended by the janas themselves to debate major, life-altering events, especially warfare. So the big takeaway here is that early governance absolutely wasn't a dictatorship. It involved multiple layers of genuine community participation.
Which leads us to a really fascinating question. Did these ancient assemblies basically mirror our modern democratic search for representation? Today, our heads of government have power, sure, but they're kept in check by parliaments and constitutions. It is mind-blowing to realize that the human desire to have a voice, to participate, and to put checks on leadership was already thriving in these institutional forms thousands of years ago.
Next up, let's explore the power of dirt. Archaeology meets history.
So far, we've just been talking about old texts, but words are really only half the story. When archaeologists actually dig into the dirt and map out settlements from the 2nd to the 1st millennium BCE, they see a massive shift. Settlements suddenly start heavily concentrating in the Ganga region. People weren't just wandering around in small kinship groups anymore. We start seeing expansive, permanent settlements and real territorial structures defining society. But why did they suddenly settle down?
Well, the dirt gives us the specific cause and effect. Right around this time, archaeologists find a huge increase in iron tools. And iron tools mean you can clear dense forests and plow the earth much deeper. That sparked a total boom in agriculture and allowed them to grow a wider variety of grains, especially paddy. With surplus food and a settled lifestyle, a completely new material culture exploded. They started making painted gray ware pottery. And eventually, in the Middle Ganga region, northern black polished ware, which is this incredibly deluxe, smooth, glossy black pottery. This tech boom is what allowed populations to skyrocket and settle down permanently.
And this economic and agricultural boom completely revolutionized the structure of the state. It's like a three-step evolution. Step 1, society started as the Jana, those simple family-based clans. Step 2, as they settled and started farming, they evolved into the Janapada, where identity became tied to their territory. Step 3, by 600 BCE, these territories expanded, consolidated, and leveled up into the Mahajanapadas, massive, complex political kingdoms that totally dominated the landscape.
I absolutely love this detail. The term Janapada literally translates to where a people, a jana, first set its feet. This points to the exact historical moment human identity shifted. Control over land, agriculture, and trade routes suddenly mattered way more than just who your cousins were. You were no longer defined just by your bloodline, but profoundly by where you lived.
So, what does this all mean for us today? I want to leave you with a provocative thought. When we look at the role of the ancient clan chief, the dynamic debates in those early assemblies, and that monumental shift from clan loyalty to a territorial identity, does it suggest our modern world isn't so new after all? When we study these ancient systems, we aren't just looking at dusty texts and old pottery. We are literally studying the origins of our own modern political identities, our need for representation, and our deep sense of national belonging. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this leaves you wanting to dig even deeper into our shared human past.